So here's a few things that I pray over my kids every single day. And the first one is for their salvation. So this is the most important thing. Obviously, I want my kids to know Christ. I want my kids to love Christ. And so I pray for their salvation every day, that they would understand who God is and his character, and that they would truly put their trust in Jesus. That is the first thing that I pray over my kids every day. The second thing I pray is for their protection. And as a mother, I want this to be the first thing I pray every single time. But I know that salvation trumps this because God's got them. But I pray for their protection. And when I pray for their protection, I say, Lord, please protect them from all sickness, disease, and illness and harm. I pray that you would put your hedge of protection around them while you're there at school, while they're outside, while they're playing, while they're walking, while they're eating, while they're drinking, all the things. And I think you can just pray for their for God's protection over them. But sometimes I elaborate because that's something that I struggle with, that I worry about. So I pray for their protection. I pray that God puts his hedge of protection around them. Thirdly, I pray for their obedience, and I pray for their obedience to Christ first. If they are obedient to Christ, everything else will fall into place. But then I pray for their obedience to us as their parents. And thirdly, I pray for their obedience to authority, so their teachers and the people that deserve their obedience, and elders at church, people like that. But I pray that they learn obedience. Fourth, I pray that they are leaders and not followers. I want them to be leaders for Christ. I want them to set the example for others around them. And I also pray that they choose friends who are leaders and not followers. I am not saying I do not want them to be friends with unbelievers. I do. I want them to be friends with everyone. And that's another thing I pray for, is their kindness. But I want them to know their stance and their values. Well, I want them to have those values and that stance, first of all. That's why I pray for their salvation and their relationship with Christ. But I want them to take a stand for what is right. And when something is not right, I want them to be able to say, that is not something I'm doing. That is not something I'm participating in. But I want them to be kind. I want them to have a Christ-like attitude about things. So I pray that they are leaders and not followers. I also pray for their friends, like I said, for their friends and the people around them that they choose to associate with. I pray that they choose Christ-like friends, people who are trying to do what the Lord wants them to do. And again, I'm not saying I don't want them to be friends with unbelievers. I do. I absolutely want them to be friends with unbelievers so that they can point others to Christ. I just want them to know where they stand on things. I want them to be able to say no when they need to say no. And that is something that I pray for. I pray that God can help them to say no when they need to say no. And then finally, I pray for my husband and I as parents, because this is really important. I pray for our marriage. I pray that we set an example, our relationship, the way we talk to each other, the way we treat each other, because they are learning from us every single day. And if we don't get it right, it's going to be really hard for them to get it right. So I pray for us as parents, I pray for our marriage, and I pray for our family.